All right, welcome back in What's Right with Nick Wright, podcast and YouTube show. We are, as recording this, right around 24 hours removed from 19 second, third, and fourth graders being murdered while at school outside of Texas. And DeMonte was sitting with me in the kitchen when the news came across my Twitter feed, and I don't think he's ever heard me. I audibly gasped and started to cry. And I'm not a big crier. You've probably seen me cry, I don't know, 4 times in the time in your life.
4 is the...
Yeah, 4 might be high. And one of them was when I was trying to cold turkey quit cigarettes and nicotine patches, and I did it at dinner. I just started crying one day because I don't know what was going on with my body was like, no, you need these nicotine patches. I'm not a big crier. But it's just the never-ending just cavalcade of horror that we've been living through, plus the fact that my youngest daughter is the age of these kids. And so there's something I want to say about the big picture gun discussion in this country, and then I want to talk about what actually happened in Texas. The big picture gun discussion it's just so wildly disingenuous and dishonest that it is, for me, impossible to talk about. Nearly impossible, because it all comes down, right? People say it's Second Amendment. And it's essentially, people argue, it is an inherently American right to be able to arm yourself against a tyrannical government. And if people who were the most ardent Second Amendment supporters actually believed that, then I would say, you know what? I don't look at things that way, but I respect your opinion. If they truly believed the government cannot be trusted, and because of that, we must be able to arm ourselves. That is what America was built on, fighting an oppressive government from, England to now, all of it. I will listen to that. But that never holds up under scrutiny, because we all know that even as armed as we are as Americans, if the federal government, if a president ordered the United States military to attack the most heavily armed American city, it would wipe it out in 24 hours. The federal government has stealth bombers and nuclear weapons and tanks and weaponry, which I don't care how armed you are, your small munitions are not going to hold up. So that part, it falls apart initially. But then one could argue, okay, so we're not going to be able to take on the U.S. military, but we should be able to protect ourselves against overzealous agents of the state. Well, the most direct first line of defense for the state is police officers. They're agents of the state that are literally deputized by the state or city that carry weapons and are allowed to use them in a way most Americans are not. And the reason that I find it so difficult to have discussions with the vast majority of Second Amendment fetishists is because they almost always, not always, but the vast majority I have come in contact with are the same exact people who, whenever there is a police shooting, side with the police. They are not worried about a tyrannical government, because what could be more tyrannical than an agent of the government killing a person in the street with no judge, no jury, no trial? And the same people that argue we must be able to carry weapons of war because the government might come after us are the same people that say should have complied, shouldn't have run, was he armed, all of it. And so In my opinion, if you want, if I will listen to someone who is an ardent Second Amendment defender, but not if they also are a thin blue line, Blue Lives Matter, anti-police brutality protest person. And they're almost, the Venn diagram of that is damn near one circle. That is the armed agents of the state in my lifetime that you have theoretically wanted to have some level of defense against are certain elements within the police force. And the people who want us armed never, in my experience, side with the civilian in that case. So I just don't think there's a logical consistency. That's the big picture element of it. That's the macro. The micro is, I think it's important. And this is again like gruesome to a degree, but I think it's worth discussing. Which is, I think people need to think about and process what actually happened after those 19 children were murdered. They're little kids, so they don't have ID. And many of them, I mean, they were shot with weapons of war, and many of them reportedly were shot multiple times or shot in the face. So what you have is, and this is similar with what happened in Sandy Hook, because in the last 10 years, we have countless school shootings, but 2 massacres of babies, of little kids. The way to identify the victims is a process of elimination of, well, who made it out, pair them up with the parents, and then as what happened in Sandy Hook, the parents who are left, your kids died. But then you have to match those parents up with the dead kid. So yesterday, they did DNA samples for the parents, and some of the parents had to go identify their babies' bodies. And we choose to live in this. It is active choices that we, as a unique nation, have made, where for the first time in modern world history, or at least in this country, I shouldn't say world history, but the first time ever in American history, as of last year, the number one cause of death among children was firearms, not car accidents. It's unfathomable. Now, part of that's because cars have gotten safer. That's good. And of course, part of that is suicide. Those are firearm deaths. Well, those are tragic in and of itself in a totally different way. And one does wonder, if firearms weren't so readily available, would some of the kids not have made that decision? Would they have gone another route? Would they have attempted suicide in a different way that maybe they'd fail and then get on track? But we're the only place in the world this happens. And we all know it. And there is not the political will to stop it. And so it's not unimaginable. It's not unbelievable. And it is terrifying. And I use that word on purpose because I've said this before, but I live in New York City, theoretically the number one target in this country for geopolitical terrorism. It was obviously the main target at 9/11. It has been targeted before. You know, I used to live in Kansas City. The odds of being the victim of a foreign terror attack in Kansas City, not nearly the same as in New York City. But I've never once spent one day had one moment in New York where I was like, I'm afraid of being a victim of a foreign terrorist attack. Now, maybe that's because we're winning the war on terror. Who knows? But we've spent a lot of time and money and treasure and human lives fighting it. We've made it a very high priority. Meanwhile, we are just giving up the fight on domestic terror. And I don't mean domestic terror in the form of what happened in Buffalo 10 days ago, which was domestic terrorism because there was like a political motive. I just mean legit. I am, over the last 10 years of my life, I'm no longer able to walk into a movie theater without having a moment of, where's the exit? Because that's a place that I know gets shot up. Now, after Buffalo, add grocery stores to the list. We're reminded regularly that our little kids, their schools are on the list. And we shouldn't be numb to the fact that it's 19 dead babies. But it's also every single child in that school is traumatized forever in ways that will have a lasting impact on every single moment of the rest of their life. And that community is changed forever. But all of our kids are victimized here. All of our kids live under this specter of this. So much so that they practice for it. And there are so many grisly tweets. And Erin Alberti tweeted, I told my third grader about the shooting. She replied, third grader, same age Deanna. Yeah, we had a lockdown drill today. There aren't very many hiding places in our room. The good ones all get taken in like 3 seconds. And then the lady writes her daughter walked out. I told Diora, our older daughter, about what happened yesterday. She didn't seem to blink. She hadn't heard about it. I told her. She was not surprised. And this is the country we've built for our children. And it feels unsustainable. It feels at times like we are ripping ourselves apart at the seams. We see that we're doing it, and we just keep walking towards more disaster. And it took 2 mentally unstable, hateful, 18-year-old kids themselves to, ruin 2 communities, change the lives of 40 families or 30 families directly, and indirectly change the life of 500 more. The ease with which it can be done and the power that we can cede to anybody. It's not a sustainable model for a thriving society. And I don't know where we go from here. I don't have the answer. I have some ideas, but they're all quite radical, and I'm not going to get into them here. I do know that we really owe our kids not only an apology, but a level of amazement. Because I am telling you right now, if any workplace in America got shot up with the regularity schools did, us adults would be demanding change, and a lot of us wouldn't go anymore. And our brave children march themselves into school every day, knowing this happens, says it's part of doing business, part of growing up in America. And hopefully, if it comes to my school, I'm one of the kids that finds one of the good hiding spots. And it's revolting. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.